Hello friends. So this is the lecture number 4 of convective heat transfer. In the previous class we looked at non-dimensionalization of the governing equations, and we identified some non-dimensional parameters which would determine the relative importance of the different terms that are present in the energy equation. So in this class, we will quickly revise those things and understand some physical significance of those before moving on to external flat plate boundary layer problem. Okay, so let's move to the whiteboard to understand a little bit more in detail about the significance of the non-dimensional parameters. Yeah. So in the previous class, we looked at the governing equation in this form, where the transient term, the advection term and diffusion term of theta, which is the non-dimensional temperature, are on the left hand side. On the right hand side, you have the del squared theta by del x squared plus del squared theta by del y squared, the conduction term, divided by REPR. And then there is the source term, and then there is Eckert number multiplied by del p by del tau plus u into del p by del x plus v into del p by del y, which is basically essentially the dp by dt term, which is nothing but pressure work term, and Eckert by Reynolds number into the phi non-dimensional, which is the viscous dissipation term. Okay. So we were just discussing briefly at the end of the last class. So in today's class, we'll just take this up in a little bit more detail. So what we have to understand is the role of this REPR, the Eckert number, and the Eckert by Reynolds. Okay. So let's do that now. Okay. So the conduction term del squared theta by del x squared, capital X, sorry, plus del squared theta by del y squared gets multiplied by 1 over REPR. Now, what does this mean? That if I look at the left hand side term, which is d theta by dt, is equal to 1 over REPR into, let's call this as del squared theta. Okay, that is the term that we have, plus we have an Eckert number multiplied by dp by dt term, or dp by d tau. Okay, this is also tau. Okay, plus EC by RE times the non-dimensional phi with the hat, we can write, plus q dot triple prime multiplied by L divided by rho u infinity Cp into T wall minus T infinity. This is the equation that we wrote. So what does it mean? If REPR is very large, then what happens? The relative importance of this term becomes small, which basically means that the diffusion or the conduction term becomes small as compared to the advection term. In a boundary layer problem, we will never neglect the diffusion term. The diffusion term will always be present in the discussion of viscous flows and convective heat transfer. And convective heat transfer cannot happen without conduction. So the conduction term will always be present. But what this term shows, REPR shows, is that the conduction term is much smaller than the advection term when REPR is much greater than 1. So the flow is dominated by advection. Okay. So when does that happen? What is REPR? REPR is U infinity into L divided by alpha, which is basically U infinity to L divided by nu, which is RE, divided by nu, that is RE, into nu by alpha. So this is RE and this is PR. So what happens basically here is that the REPR being much larger than 1 basically means, okay, if I cancel out these terms, the alpha term, which is basically the thermal diffusivity, is much smaller than the corresponding U infinity term. So alpha by L, which is the speed of diffusion, okay, because this is meter square per second by meter, so meter per second, that's the speed of diffusion, and U infinity, which is the speed of advection. So when this number is much larger than 1, then the speed of advection is much more than the speed of diffusion. So advection dominates. Advection dominates conduction. Okay. So this is the thing that we need to understand. So when REPR is of the order of 1, then you would have alpha by L is of the same order as U infinity. Then equally strong advection and diffusion. And the other extreme, when REPR is much less than 1, is conduction dominated. Scenario. Okay, so you understand that the value of the parameter REPR, which can be calculated simply by knowing U infinity, L and alpha, would be basically able to determine whether the problem is advection dominated, conduction dominated, or the two are equally strong. Okay, so this is one parameter. Let's now understand the other parameter, which is Eckert number. So this is Eckert number multiplied by dP by dt. So we can understand from this term that if Eckert number is very small, then this pressure work term will drop off. Okay, so if EC is much less than 1, then the pressure drop term will drop off. Otherwise, if EC is of the order of 1, then this term will contribute to the energy equation. So what do we understand by this? That if there is changes in pressure that are happening in the flow, and that pressure changes the specific volume substantially. So there is a relationship between pressure, specific volume, temperature. If the changes in pressure in the flow are substantial enough to change the specific volume and therefore do work, then that can contribute to the energy equation. So the amount of work done by the pressure changes in the flow would be able to contribute a significant term to the energy equation. So the temperature of the substance at that location would be determined by the pressure and the compression of the flow that happens. So that would happen when Eckert number is much lesser. That would happen when Eckert number is of the order of 1. So let us try to understand what that is. Okay. So what is Eckert number? We saw that Eckert number is equal to U infinity square divided by Cp into T wall minus T infinity. Okay, so this is what we understood. So if EC is much less than 1, then I would say U infinity square or is much less than Cp into T wall minus T infinity. What does this mean? Suppose I understand this as in some form the kinetic energy of the flow, because U infinity squared by 2 would be the kinetic energy of the free stream flow. Then if this kinetic energy is much less than the Cp delta T, then the changes in kinetic energy would not contribute to the value of temperature, the changes in temperature. Or if it contributes, it will be negligible. Say for example, if the velocity is of the order of, let's say, 10 meters per second, then the kinetic energy would be u squared by 2, which will be 100 by 2 will 50 joules. Okay, so in comparison, if I look at the difference in temperature, even if it is a small changes in temperature, let us say wall temperature is higher than the surrounding temperature by 5 degrees, then this Cp, for example, if it is airflow, this Cp is 1000 joules per kg Kelvin multiplied by 5, so it will become 5000. So this 5000 is substantially bigger than this 50, and therefore the velocities of the order of 10 meters per second or 5 meters per second would not contribute anything to the changes in temperature. If at all it contributes, it will be negligible. Whereas if this u becomes comparable to this, if u square becomes comparable to this, which basically means if this is 5000, if u square is also of the order of 5000, which will basically mean u infinity would be of the order of 70 meters per second, 75 meters per second. In such a case, then the velocity will start contributing. So basically, what does that mean? Eckert number being small basically means that it's a low speed flow. It's not a high speed flow, so it does not contribute substantially to the changes in temperature. But in high speed flows, that is flows that become close to closer and closer to sonic velocity or higher than sonic velocity, those flows would substantially contribute to the changes in temperature. So the compression that happens due to the changes in pressure in the flow would be enough to cause changes in temperature, and therefore it would be the pressure work would be significant. So pressure work is significant if the u squared is of the order of Cp by Cp into T1 minus T infinity or higher, whereas when u infinity is much less than this, that is when Eckert number is much less than 1, then the pressure work is negligible. So when this is the case, pressure work negligible. When it is of the order, that is u infinity square is of the order of Cp delta T, then pressure work should be included in energy equation. Okay, so this determines when the energy equation should include or should not include. So if it is greater, then it should be included. So the pressure work term should be included in the energy equation if and only if Eckert number is of the order of 1 or higher, and if Eckert number is less than 1, much less than 1. Normally when you say much less than 1, it is at least 2 orders of magnitude smaller. So if Eckert number is 0.01 or less, then we say that pressure work can be neglected. Okay, so this is the understanding. Now going back to this slide again, the third term that we look at is the viscous dissipation. So what do we understand by viscous dissipation? When the kinetic energy of the flow is destroyed in the form of heat, is dissipated in the form of heat into the flow. It's always done. Whenever there is a viscous force acting, then the kinetic energy of the flow is destroyed into because of the viscosity into heat. But if the flow velocities are small and the pressure, the velocity gradients are small, the dissipation does not affect the temperature. But otherwise, when the gradients are very sharp, for example, I gave you the example in the class of bearing. So you have let's say a journal and a bearing. There is a concentric hollow cylinder and a solid cylinder. The solid cylinder rotating inside the hollow cylinder with a film of oil in between the two, which is what normally happens in journal bearing lubrication. Now when the speed of the rotation is very, very high and the fluid is very viscous, then this kinetic energy that is introduced by the rotation of the inner shaft onto the fluid is dissipated in the form of heat, and the oil temperature tends to rise. Now, when is that important and when should be the viscous dissipation term included, when should it not be included, is determined by this parameter, Eckert number divided by Reynolds number. So if this EC by RE is much less than 1, then this term can be neglected. Otherwise, this term has to be included. Okay, so that is the thing that we would say. Now let's try to understand what do we mean by Eckert number by Re, EC by Re is much less than 1. When does that happen? Eckert number is much less than the Reynolds number. What is Eckert number? U infinity divided by Cp into T wall minus T infinity, that is Eckert number, is much less than U infinity L by nu. Okay, so this is your Reynolds number. Now, what does this mean? So if I bring all the U infinity and things to one side and take the Cp and delta T to the other side, what will this give me? This will basically give me nu times U infinity divided by L. So this should be U infinity square. Okay, so one U infinity gets cancelled. So it's nu into U infinity by L is much less than Cp into T wall minus T infinity. Now, in some sense, this nu U infinity by L is basically in some sense it's the shear stress. It's representative of the shear stress because U infinity by L is representative of a certain velocity gradient. Okay, and velocity gradient multiplied by kinematic viscosity gives me the viscous shear stress. And something which is related to the viscous shear stress is much less than the temperature difference term multiplied by the specific heat, which basically means that the energy produced by the shearing action is much smaller than the actual temperature differences, the energy change due to actual temperature differences that is prevailing. So this term would not contribute significantly to the temperature change. That is why when EC by Re is much less than 1, this is much less than this, then you can neglect the viscous dissipation term because it is not going to significantly contribute to the changes in temperature in the energy equation. But when this is of the order of 1, so this becomes of the order of 1, then this nu U infinity by L is of the same order as this, so you cannot neglect the viscous dissipation because there will be a temperature change that will be caused by the dissipation of the kinetic energy of flow into heat that will contribute significantly to the energy equation and therefore should be considered. So the viscous dissipation term is negligible when EC is much less than Re. And when it is of the order, then should not be or should be included. Okay. So when this term is significant, then the viscous dissipation term should be included. So EC by Re is of the order of 1 or greater, then the viscous dissipation term should be included in the energy equation, otherwise it can be dropped. So go back here. So if EC is much less than 1, I can drop this from the energy equation. So the energy equation becomes that much shorter. And if EC by Re is much less than 1, this term can be dropped. So it can go away. Usually the Reynolds numbers that we deal with in the order of thousands. So unless Eckert number comes to the order of thousands and this becomes comparable, this term will always be negligible. And this term will be considerable only when EC is of the order of 1 or higher, otherwise this can be neglected. And when there is no heat generation, then this term can be neglected, in which case it will only have the advection balancing the diffusion. Okay, so it's basically the advection and diffusion together are the transport mechanisms. Okay, so the rate of change of energy in a control volume, which is determined by the transient term, would be determined by the rate of advection and rate of diffusion. Okay, so the relative magnitude of these two is determined by this term REPR, and it can be the energy can be generated for the distribution because either of pressure work or because of dissipation of flow kinetic energy due to viscosity or because of any other mechanism by which heat is generated in the domain. Okay, so that explains the various terms that need to be included or neglected in the energy equation. Okay, so we'll now move on to the problem of external boundary layer flows. Okay, so let's start a fresh page. Laminar external flows. Okay. Now, the assumptions with which we are now going to do in this one, in order to keep the equation simple, are constant properties. Okay. So, rho, Cp, mu, alpha are all constant. Okay, so this is one thing that we will assume. The second thing we'll assume is steady state, which means del by del t terms are not included in the equation. Okay, the third assumption we will make is of incompressibility. Okay, the density being constant is actually part of the incompressibility. So incompressible flow, okay, not just incompressible fluids, but also normally compressible fluids such as gases can also have incompressible flows when the changes in pressure that are happening in the flow because of the flow velocities does not produce enough change in the density. Okay, so the flow does not compress the fluid. So then it's an incompressible flow. So we'll take assumptions of incompressible flow, steady state, and constant properties. So with this, what do the governing equations get reduced to? The continuity equation, which looks like del by del t of rho plus del by del x of rho u plus del by del y of rho v equal to 0. In this one, I said that transient, so this term will be out. Sorry, it's a steady state, so this term will be out. Okay, the assumption is steady state. And then, since density is a constant, it can be taken out of these two differentials. So then this equation reduces to del u by del x plus del v by del y equal to 0. This is the continuity equation, or in other words, del dot v equal to 0. Okay, so this is your continuity equation, del u by del x plus del v by del y equal to 0. So this is your equation number 1. Okay. Then the second equation that we look at is the momentum equation. Let's say take the x momentum equation. So you write del by del t of rho u, okay, plus del by del x of rho u u plus del by del y of rho u v is equal to, if I write the terms in the way they should be, you will have a minus del p by del x plus del by del x of the tau xx terms other than pressure, which will be 2 mu del u by del x minus 2 by 3 mu del dot v plus del by del y of mu times del v by del x plus del u by del y plus rho fx. So these are the terms. The additional assumption that we will include here is no body force. Okay, so the gravitational terms are not important. So this will go off because there is no body force. This will go off because there is no transient. And if I take the density out of this, rho will come out because it's a constant. It will be dy dx of del by del x of rho u and del by del y of u v. If I multiply this equation by u and subtract from this one, so I'll subtract a u del u by del x and u del u by del v by del y from here, then what will remain from here will be del by del x, this will be u del u by del x plus v del u by del y. Let's do it on the next page so that there is clarity. Okay, so you'll have rho times del by del x of u, which is basically u square, plus del by del y of uv. This is your left hand side. Okay. Now from this I subtract the continuity equation multiplied by u multiplied by del u by del x plus del v by del y. Okay, so this is basically the left hand side itself, because what you are subtracting, this is a 0. Okay, so what happens? This, if I expand, this will be 2u del u by del x plus this will be u del v by del x plus v del u by del x minus u del u by del x minus u del v by del y. Correct? So what happens? The u del u by del x cancels out and u del v by del y, u del v by del y, where did I miss? This should be u del v by del y, right? Oh no. Yes, this is u del v by del y and v del u by del y. Okay, so either u del u by del v by del y will get cancelled out. So what I have is u del u by del x plus v del u by del y. So the left hand side will actually be only these two terms, u del u by del x plus v del u by del y. Okay, then go back. What are the other terms on the right hand side? On the right hand side, there is a del dot v here. So the del dot v is 0 according to continuity equation. So that will go off. And this we have to expand and simplify. So let's do that. So what are the terms that are here? There is a del by del x of 2 mu del u by del x, and mu is a constant, so mu can come out. So this will be 2 mu times del square u by del x square. Okay, 2 mu times del square u by del x square. And what will this be? This will be del by del y of mu del v by del x plus del u by del y. So if I take mu as a constant out, this will become del square v by del x del y plus del square u by del y square, right? So those are the terms that we will write on the next page. So this is the left hand side. So LHS is equal to u del u by del x plus v del u by del y. Now RHS will be equal to minus del p by del x. Okay, so this is multiplied by rho, sorry. Okay, so this whole thing by rho, like I'll keep the rho out there. And similarly this also rho u, so that you can cancel it. Okay. So the right hand side is minus del p by del x plus it will be 2 mu del square u by del x square. Okay, so that is the first term, plus the next one will have mu times del square v by del x plus del square u by del y square. Okay, now what do? I take out one del square u by del x square from here and this term. So both of them, if I take out del by del x, I'll get, there is a del u by del x here, plus if I take del by del x here, there will be a del v by del y, mu times this. So that will be 1. In addition to that, there will be 1 del square u by del x square term and 1 del square u by del y square term multiplied by mu. So this being a 0, this term will cancel out. So you will only have del square u by del x square and del square u by del y square. So this is actually equal to, let me rewrite this, minus del p by del x plus del square u by del x square into mu, okay, plus this plus mu times del square u by del y square. So now this term cancels out. You have only minus del P by del X plus mu times del square U by del X square plus del square U by del Y square. So that is the right hand side. So the right hand side also simplifies. So the entire equation can now be written as U del U by del X plus V del U by del Y. So there is a density that is multiplying this, which will come to the right hand side. It will be minus 1 by rho del P by del X plus mu by rho will become nu times del squared U by del X square plus del squared U by del Y square. Okay, so this is the simplified X momentum equation. If I do the same thing to the Y momentum equation, I'll get a very similar equation there. U del V by del X plus V del V by del Y is equal to minus 1 by rho del P by del Y plus nu times del squared V by del X squared plus del squared V by del Y squared. Okay. In the same fashion, in the energy equation, if I go back here and say that constant properties, okay, this is an one-dimensional equation, but I say that because it is incompressible flow, the flow velocities are low, so the pressure work term is small, neglected, and viscous dissipation term is also not important, and heat generation is also not important. Then it's only these terms that will remain, in which the transient term is not present because it is steady state. So we will have only these two advection terms and these two conduction terms which will be present in the equation, but we will write it in the dimensional form. Okay, so that will then give me U del T by del X plus V looks U del T by del X plus V del T by del Y is equal to, there is a rho Cp that comes on the left hand side, which will go to the right hand side, and right side there is a K, so it will be K by rho Cp, which will become an alpha, okay, multiplied by del squared T by del X square plus del squared T by del Y square. Okay, so this is equation 2, this is equation 3, and this is equation 4. Okay, the equation 1 is not visible here, so let us write that also, del U by del X plus del V by del Y equal to 0. This is equation 1. So these are the 4 equations which will be applicable to two-dimensional, steady state, incompressible, constant property flow. Okay, so this is the equation that we have. So you see that these 3 equations, the equations 2, 3 and 4 look very similar in form, except that there is a U here, there is a V here, and there is a T here. Other than that, the left hand side is the same. The pressure term is present in the momentum equation, which is not present here. Here there is a nu, and in place of that there is an alpha here. Again, otherwise this is U and this is V. So this equation is entirely in U, this is entirely in V, and this is entirely in T, other than this U and V which are there in the advection equation, and this nu and this alpha in the energy equation. So otherwise the equations have very similar forms, and if the del P by del X or del P by del Y term were to drop out, then these 3 equations will look identical, right? So that is the interesting observation that we have. It basically comes out of the fact that the phenomena of convection diffusion of momentum and energy are analogous to each other. Okay, so if I write it for concentration, which I was doing in the first class, I can write an equation number 5 here, which will be U del Ci by del X plus V del Ci by del Y is equal to the Ci. Okay, this is equal to d times, which is the diffusion coefficient, multiplied by del squared Ci by del X squared plus del squared Ci by del Y squared. Okay. So this is the equation of conservation of species species I, concentration of species I. Okay. So this is the fifth equation. So this is the set of equations that we will be now looking at in the next several classes that we will be considering. Okay. So now if I would like to consider the laminar external flow, which is what we basically wanted to start with. First of all, we just did the assumptions and did the simplifications of the equations. Now, laminar external flow, now we will look at a flow over a flat plate. This is the simplest of possible external flows that one can consider. Suppose there is a plate that is here and there is a flow that is coming from this side which has a uniform velocity u infinity at temperature T infinity. Okay, this is the flow that comes, and it also has a constant density rho, which can be called as rho infinity or rho. Okay, now this when it flows over this surface, because of the presence of this plate, at the surface of the plate, the flow would stick, and since the plate itself is stationary and not moving, at the surface of the plate, the flow would be stationary. That is, because of no slip, the value of u will be 0 at y is equal to 0 if I write this as the y coordinate and this is the x coordinate from the leading edge. At y is equal to 0, u will be equal to 0. And v will also be equal to 0 because of impervious plate. That is, the flat plate that I am looking at, it does not allow flow to go through it, and therefore there is no normal component of the velocity. So u as well as v would be 0 at y is equal to 0. This is no slip and impervious plate. And temperature equal to T wall at y equal to 0. Okay, constant wall temperature case we'll take. So this T wall is a constant. And we already said that the oncoming flow has u infinity and T infinity. So far away from the plate, where the plate is not affecting the flow, the velocity and temperature would still remain T infinity. So u tends to u infinity and T tends to T infinity as y tends to infinity. Okay, so this is the condition that we would have. Okay, so in this actually, the flow very close to the wall alone is significant, and that is what needs to be examined in order to study how much drag this flow is exercising on this plate. Okay, so how much viscous drag is it exercising? So if there is this flow past it, then how much force does it exert on the plate per unit area? That is, how much shear stress does it produce? That is one question that we need to answer. The second question that we need to answer is, if there is a temperature difference between T wall and T infinity, what is the heat flux? That is, the heat transfer per unit area of the surface. Okay, so one is shear stress. We call this as tau wall, okay, which is basically caused by the velocity gradient at the boundary. And 2 is the heat flux. We will call it as q dot double prime at wall. Okay, so now this tau wall and q dot double prime at wall are the two things that we would like to consider by studying the flow over a flat plate. Okay, so the convection study over a flat plate basically needs to give us these two results. Okay, so in order to solve this problem, we basically have to go back to these equations and apply those boundary conditions that I have given here to these equations and solve them. And we'll also need to see whether these equations can be simplified any further, by meaning any terms that are already present in this equation, can they be neglected? Okay, so in order to do that, I will actually go through what is called an order of magnitude analysis, which will tell us, just by quickly doing an order of magnitude of the various terms from the understanding of the physics of the problem, can we get the form of the expressions that we will get for the shear stress and for the heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so, or sorry, for the heat flux. Okay, so let's go to that and find out. Okay, so now we are looking at a thin layer of fluid close to the wall, because what is happening far away is not of any consequence. That is not going to affect the shear stress or the heat transfer. So a thin layer of fluid very close to the wall is what is going to be important. So suppose this is your free stream, and I can actually construct, let us say, a thin boundary around a boundary close to the wall, so that the region that is within this boundary has been affected by the presence of the wall, and the region that is outside this boundary is not affected by the presence of the wall. Then we call this region the boundary layer. Then all we need to do is to study what is happening inside this boundary layer using these equations, so that we can understand how the flow that is going over the plate is affecting the plate in terms of the shear stress and heat transfer, and whatever is outside this we don't have to. So suppose at any given instant the thickness of this layer is, or at any given location, let's say this is x, so at any given x the location of this, the thickness of this layer is delta, then between y is equal to 0 and y is equal to delta is what we need to look at much of what is happening, and beyond that we need not look at all. So in that case, the orders of magnitude of the various terms x, y, u, v, these things we need to establish in order to do the order of magnitude analysis. So suppose I have a plate whose length is L. Okay, so then I can say x is of the order of L because it varies between 0 and L. Okay, but y is a much smaller number. This delta is usually of the order of a few millimeters thick, when the L is of the order of a meter. Okay, so this term, the delta, is going to be much smaller. So delta is much smaller than L, which basically means slender boundary layer. Is the approximation or assumption which will help us to simplify these equations. So then your y is of the order of delta, which is much less than L. So this is the next thing. The other thing that we know is that the velocity u inside this boundary layer varies from 0 at the wall to u infinity at the edge of the boundary layer. So you know u is therefore of the order of u infinity because it varies between 0 and u infinity. So if I use these three in equation number 1, the continuity equation, which says del u by del x plus del v by del y is equal to 0, then it basically goes to tell you that del u by del x should be of the order of del v by del y, so that they can cancel each other and the sum can become 0. Okay, so the magnitude of these two should be of the same order. Now if I put the orders of u, x and y, then I'll be able to get the order of v from this. So what does that give me? It tells me u is of the order of u infinity. So del u by del x will be of the order of u infinity by L, because we are looking at the gradient in the x direction. X itself is of the order of L and u varies between 0 and u infinity, and therefore u infinity by L will be the order of magnitude of the left hand side term. This should be equal to, this should be of the order of v divided by delta. Is that correct? Because the y direction, the y is of the order of delta. So the v velocity would be correspondingly written like this. So v by delta is of the order of u infinity by L, which tells me that v is of the order of u infinity multiplied by delta by L, and since this delta by L is very, very small, this v is much less than u infinity. Okay, so this is also intuitively understandable. The component of velocity in this direction, in this particular flow, will be much smaller than the component of velocity in this direction, because the predominant flow direction is this. The vertical component is going to come because there is a slower moving layer of fluid closer to the wall, and therefore the fluid that is coming at the wall will be slightly directed away, and there will be a vertical component, but that component is likely to be much, much smaller than the horizontal component. So this is the order of magnitude of the continuity equation, which tells me that the vertical velocity v, that is a v velocity, the velocity in the y direction, is much smaller than the velocity in the x direction. Is that clear? So that is the first thing that we get. That the first result that we get is that v is much less than u infinity. So v is of the order of u multiplied by delta by L, and u is of the order of u infinity. So v is of the order of u infinity to delta by L. Okay, so this is what we got from the first equation. The next equation, which is the momentum equation in the x direction, we can write that u del u by del x plus v del u by del y is equal to minus 1 by rho del p by del x plus nu times del squared u by del x squared plus del squared u by del y squared. Now, since the velocities in the vertical direction, that is the y direction, are extremely small as compared to those in the x direction, the other equation, which will be u del v by del x plus v del v by del y, the entire equation can be neglected because the velocities in those directions are not important, which will then mean the pressure term there, which is del p by del y, 1 by rho del p by del y, is very small, is much less than the terms in the x momentum equation. Okay, so we'll say that the pressure, this is very small. What does it mean? If I have a plate which is like this, and the pressure gradient in this direction is negligible, I can say that if the pressure here is P infinity, then the pressure here is also P infinity, and therefore the gradient is negligible. So inside the boundary layer, there is no variation in pressure that happens. So if that is the case, then the pressure inside the boundary layer is the same as the pressure outside, and therefore therefore we'll be able to say that the pressure term in the boundary layer is going to follow the same thing as the external flow. So in the external flow, in the case of a flat plate, the pressure is going to be uniform everywhere. There is no acceleration or deceleration anywhere. So P is equal to P infinity, and therefore del P by del X is also 0. So for a flat plate, del P by del X, which is actually equal to dP by dx now, because y variation is negligible, is equal to 0 because P is equal to P infinity. Okay, in such a case, then what happens? This term drops out. Okay, so you only have the advection terms and the diffusion terms. Okay, which is one of the good things that has happened. Now, if I do the order of magnitude analysis, these two terms are going to be adding to each other. So if one of them is much bigger than the other can be considered as negligible. Similarly, these two terms are going to add to each other. So in the pair of terms, if one of them is much larger than the other, then the smaller term can be neglected. So that's what we will try to do in this one. So what we will do now, we will write the orders of magnitude. So u will be of the order of u infinity, and del u by del x will be of the order of u infinity by L, and we'll write a comma here, and out of these two, whatever is larger we will keep. The second one will be v, which is u infinity into delta by L, that is the order of v, into u infinity, u is of the order of u infinity, divided by delta. Okay. So now what happens? This delta gets cancelled out. So you get u infinity to u infinity by L, u infinity to u infinity by L. So these two are of the same order of magnitude. So neither of the terms needs to be dropped in relation to the other. Now this is of the order of, the right hand side will have the nu, and on this one you will have u divided by, u infinity divided by L squared, that is the first term. X is of the order of L, so u infinity divided by L squared. And the second term is u infinity divided by delta square. Okay, so this is the thing. Now, since delta is much smaller than L, u infinity by L square will be a much smaller term as compared to u infinity by delta square. So this term can be dropped, which basically means in the main equation, this term will be negligibly small as compared to the other equation. So the equation for the boundary layer will therefore be this two terms on the left hand side and this one term on the right hand side with the nu. Okay, the other terms can drop out. That is the important conclusion that comes from this. Now, what do we make out of this equation? This equation tells me that u infinity squared by L on the left hand side is of the order of nu u infinity divided by delta square. So this gives me an expression for delta which is in the order of magnitude, which is very important. Okay, the square will go with this u infinity, and I can take this delta square and I multiply and divide by L. So I'll get a delta by L the whole square, suppose on the left hand side. Okay. Delta by L the whole square is of the order of, so what will happen? This delta square has moved here and I have multiplied by L here. So I have to multiply here also by L below. And what happens? This nu stays here and the u infinity goes here. Okay, is that what I have got? So this delta by L the whole square is of the order of nu by u infinity L. So what is this? The u infinity L by nu, which is written upside down here, is basically therefore 1 over Reynolds number. So this is 1 over Re. So my delta by L the whole square is of the order of 1 by Re. Okay, so that is what is the result that I have got from here. So I'll write that on the next page. Delta by L the whole square is of the order of 1 over Re, which basically implies delta by L is of the order of Reynolds number to the power of minus half. What does this mean? The thickness of the boundary layer at length L at the end of the plate would be of the order of the square root of the Reynolds number. The thickness of the boundary layer divided by L, the ratio of these two, it's a non-dimensional number, will be of the order of Re to the power of minus half. So if Reynolds number is 1000, okay, the square root of 1000 is about 30. Okay, so delta by L will be about 1 by 30. So if I have a 1 meter long plate, the thickness of the boundary layer will be about 3 centimeters. That's approximately the thickness of the boundary layer, which is estimated by this. This is the order of magnitude. The exact number will basically be this multiplied by some constant. Okay, so that is a result that we'll have. So this is one result that we have got. Okay, now if I want to write the shear stress tau wall, this is normally defined as mu del u by del y at the wall. This is how the shear stress is defined by the Newton's law of viscosity. So now using this, if I write the orders of magnitude, this is of the order of mu will stay the way it is, and this will be u infinity divided by delta. Okay, so this tau wall is going to be of this order. So if I want to normalize or non-dimensionalize this tau wall, I'll write tau wall divided by half rho u infinity squared. okay, is of the order of, I can drop this half in the order of magnitude. So it will actually become mu u infinity by delta, okay, and into 1 by rho u infinity square. Okay, if you want, I can keep the half also and make it 2, but otherwise you can just keep it because it's only order of magnitude. So now what happens? The u infinity gets cancelled against this one. Okay, so what do I get? This becomes this is a mu and there is a rho u infinity. So I multiply and divide by L. So L by L if I put, then I get rho u infinity L by mu, which is 1 over Reynolds number, and this 1 by delta. So it is of the order of 1 over Re and 1 over delta. Correct? Sorry, L over delta. Now L over delta, according to this, is L over delta is according to this Re to the power of half. So this is of the order of Re to the power of half by Re, which is again equal to of the order of Re to the power of minus half. So the skin friction coefficient, that is what we call this non-dimensional number as, which is tau wall by half rho infinity square. So the CF is of the order of Re to the power of minus half. So this is the next result you get. The non-dimensional shear stress at the wall is going to vary as Reynolds number to the power of minus half. So this is your result. Okay. Now using the order of magnitude analysis, we can also get what the Nusselt number would vary as. Okay, so that is the next thing that we need to do. So let me quickly take the energy equation. The energy equation, so let me do it on the fresh page. The energy equation looks like U del T by del X plus V del T by del Y is equal to alpha del squared T by del X squared plus del squared T by del Y squared. Okay. Now in this one, again, because we are now looking at the thermal boundary layer, the thickness of the boundary layer would be a slightly different quantity because the velocity boundary layer is one thing. The thermal boundary layer is where the temperature goes to T infinity. So suppose we say T wall greater than T infinity. In such a case, suppose this is your reference line, then this is T infinity. Then the temperature grows to T wall inside the boundary layer like this. Okay. Now the thickness of this layer, I call this as delta T. It need not be the same as the velocity boundary layer thickness, where U goes to U infinity. The U may go to U infinity at a larger thickness. This is one possibility. Or it may go to U infinity at a much smaller distance. This is another possibility. So these are two extreme possibilities that exist. The third possibility, of course, is the delta is of the order of delta T. We'll look at all of these three options. Okay. So delta is much greater than delta T is one option. Delta is much less than delta T is another option. And delta is of the order of delta T is the third option. Now we'll understand under what conditions each one of these would be coming and what would be the order of magnitude of the non-dimensional heat flux in these cases. Okay. So let us do an order of magnitude of this one. If I do that, again y is of the order of delta T, which is much less than L, and therefore this term will go negligible, exactly the same way as it happened in the momentum equation. So your boundary layer equation will only have this, this and this term. Now using that, let us do the order of magnitude analysis. So I'll be writing now all the y will be of the order of delta T in the energy equation. Okay, so I'll get U into this del T is going to be of the order of T wall minus T infinity. So I'll write it as delta T. This, if I write delta T is equal to T wall minus T infinity, which is a constant for this problem because T1 is also a constant, T infinity is also a constant. So U delta T by L, okay, because X is of the order of L, comma, V delta T by this delta T, the thermal boundary layer thickness. So this is your left hand side. This is of the order of alpha times delta T divided by delta T square. Okay, so now this is your order of magnitude equation. Now we'll need to look at three scenarios for this order of magnitude equation when this delta is much greater than delta T, delta is much less than delta T, and delta is of the order of delta T. And this V we can always write as U into delta by L. So this is U into delta by L. That is something that we found from the continuity equation, the previous slides. Okay, where did we find that? Yes, so here we found that V is going to be of the order of U into delta by L. Okay, so that is what we wrote here, and U is of the order of U infinity we wrote here, but that can change in the new case, so we'll just keep it as U into delta by L. So this is your form of the energy equations order of magnitude. Now let us look at these three cases. First case, let's look at delta much greater than delta T. Okay, so delta much greater than delta T is the first case here. So this is, let us say, delta T, and delta is much bigger than that. In which case, okay, let me draw it in a more contrasting form such that it is much greater. Okay, so suppose this is your delta and your delta T is so tiny, okay, so that the delta is much greater than delta T. So then what happens? The velocity in the entire boundary layer, so suppose this is a velocity reference line, the velocity goes from U infinity and gradually moves to 0 here. So the order of magnitude of U inside this boundary layer is not going to be of the order of U infinity, but suppose if I take this approximately as a straight line, then I can scale it with respect to delta. So I can say U infinity by delta multiplied by delta T. Okay, so my U is going to be of the order of U infinity by delta into delta T. That is my order of magnitude of U inside the thermal boundary layer. So this whole thing is for the thermal boundary layer, U is of this order. So now if I substitute this into this equation and do the order of magnitude, what will happen in the fresh page? Okay. U infinity into delta by delta T, that is the value of U, that is the way this, multiplied by delta T by L, multiplied by temperature difference divided by L. This is the first term. And the second term is U multiplied by delta by L. So this is U infinity into, okay, so it's not delta by delta T, it's delta T by delta, sorry. Okay, it's delta T by delta. Okay, so it will be U infinity into delta T by delta multiplied by delta by L. Okay, so that is your V into delta T by delta T. Okay, so this is your left hand side. This is of the order of alpha delta T divided by delta T square. Now what happens in the left hand side? You have U infinity delta T by delta is common to both of this. Delta T by L is also there. So what is not there? There is an additional term of delta by delta T. Okay, and this delta by delta T is much greater than 1, and therefore this term will fall through and you will have only this term which is significant. Okay, now if I take this term and make the order of magnitude with respect to this, then what will happen? This delta U infinity multiplied by delta T by delta multiplied by delta by L multiplied by this delta T divided by delta T. So this gets cancelled out and this gets, what am I doing? U delta by L, U infinity to delta T by delta into delta by L Okay. U infinity into delta t by delta into delta by L into delta t by delta t. So this also gets cancelled, is of the order of alpha delta t by delta t square. Is that right? Okay, I cancelled out the wrong term, and that's why we are getting into a difficulty here, right? Because okay, so in these two terms, this one is u delta t by delta into delta t by L. This also has u delta t by delta into delta t by L multiplied by delta by delta t this should have had a delta t by L. I'm sorry about that. In the continuity equation written for the thermal boundary layer, we'll basically have this as delta t by L and not delta by L. Okay, so that is the kind of fault that we had kept, and therefore this will be a delta t by L is the term that we'll get. Okay, now things will be all right. Now, so this delta t get cancelled. So these two terms now come to the same order of magnitude. Okay, so I'll have u infinity into delta t by L into delta t by L is of this order. So now if I bring this delta t square to this side, becomes delta t cube. This temperature difference can be cancelled out on both sides. So I'll get a delta t cube divided by, if I write as L cube to make it non-dimensional, there is one extra L that I have put here. This will be of the order of alpha divided by L into u infinity. Okay, so this is the term that I will get. This now alpha divided by this is u infinity L by alpha. If I look at it, it is this is of the order of 1 over Reynolds number into Prandtl number. What did I put? This is not L, this is delta actually. Making so many mistakes. This is a delta. Okay, so this therefore there will be a delta by L that will go here. Right? Okay. Okay. Now this delta by L I can write as R e to the power of minus half. Okay. So this will be of the order of 1 over R e to the power of half. Is that correct? Okay, so this delta, I forgot to write it as delta, I wrote it as L. That is the problem. So u infinity to delta by delta into delta t by L is of this order. So this delta will go up there and I multiply and divide by L square. So I get a delta t by L the whole cube. And on this side, I get u infinity L by nu in the reverse and delta t by L. So this becomes this, and this is nothing but of the order of 1 over Re to the power of 3 by 2 PR to the power of PR. Okay, so this is delta t by L the whole cube. So if I take to the power of 1 by 3 on both sides, this becomes of the order of 1 over Re to the power of half PR to the power of 1 by 3. Okay, so this gives me delta t by L is of the order of Re to the power of half and Prandtl to the power of 1 by 3. This is the case when delta is much greater than delta t. Okay, so what does this give me as a result? Then delta, now the heat flux, okay, delta T by L is of the order of 1 over Re to the power of half Prandtl to the power of 1 by 3. And I also know delta by L is of the order of 1 over Re to the power of half. So if I take delta by delta T, in this case this is supposed to be much greater than 1, which is, what is this here? In this case, 1 over R to the power of half would get cancelled. So Prandtl to the power of 1 by 3 will go here. This is much greater than 1. So when does this happen? Delta is much greater than delta T if Prandtl number is, or Prandtl number to the 1 by 3 is much greater than 1, is the way it comes. Okay. So when Prandtl number is much greater than 1, what does Prandtl number mean? It is nu by alpha. So nu is much greater than alpha. Then this happens. The boundary layer, momentum boundary layer thickness is much larger than the thermal boundary layer if the viscosity or the momentum diffusivity, kinematic viscosity is much larger than the thermal diffusivity. Okay, and what happens to the q dot double prime wall when I normalize it? This is written as h multiplied by T wall minus T infinity in the Newton's law of cooling, and that's also equal to, or that is equal to K minus K del T by del Y at the wall. Okay. Now, if I want to write this in a non-dimensional form, I'll write H into L by K. It's the non-dimensional form, which I call it as the Nusselt number. And that will be, this K comes here and multiply and divide, multiply by L on both sides. So I'll get, this is of the order of 1 over delta T. Okay, this comes here. And I have multiplied by L, so I get an L here also. Multiplied by this del T by del Y is nothing but the delta T divided by delta T. So this delta T gets cancelled. So I get a delta T by L. Okay, so the Nusselt number is of the order of 1 over delta T by L. So this becomes of the order of Re to the power of half Prandtl to the power of 1 by 3. So this is one result which I get without solving any equations, just looking at orders of magnitude of various terms. Okay, in the same way, I can write for the other two. The other case is when delta T is much greater than delta. We'll find that the equation that we started with, this u delta T by L and u delta T by L into delta T by delta T. Okay, so these two are of the same order then. So basically what you will end up getting then is u into delta T by L is of the order of alpha times delta T by delta T square. Okay, so the delta T would get cancelled, and I'll get delta T by L the whole square is of the order of alpha by u. This is u infinity, so u infinity L. Why does it happen? Because this is delta T and this is delta. So the velocity is more or less uniform throughout the thermal boundary layer, because the momentum boundary layer is a very small fraction. U is of the order of u infinity. So I can just write u infinity in place of u, then I'll get this. So this is of the order of 1 over REPR. So delta T by L is of the order of REPR raised to the power of minus half. Okay, so this tells me that delta by delta T is of the order of Prandtl number to the power of minus half. Okay, Prandtl number to the power of half, and in this case this is going to be much less than 1. Okay, so this is much less than 1, so this is Prandtl to the power of half. Okay, so we say that Prandtl to the power of half is much less than 1, or Prandtl number is much less than 1 when this is happening. Okay, so but the moment thermal bond layer is very thick when alpha is much greater than nu. So that is the case that you'll get here. And here the Nusselt number therefore will come of the order of RePr whole to the power of half. Okay, and the third case when the two are of the same order, also I'll get the same order of magnitude result. Okay, so this is basically what I wanted to convey in today's class. So we'll just pause this discussion here, and let's continue this discussion in the next class. For now, we will close the discussion. Okay.